Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to a little bit of more of a somber edition, but optimistic edition of our U.S. men's national team's recap. This will also kind of be a little bit of a looking ahead, but mostly focused on, at least to start, the results against the Netherlands in the round of 16. The U.S. was unable to keep up the progression. I think in this game they lost 3-1. I also don't think the score necessarily shows what actually happened in that game, but just some initial thoughts from me for this game. I think the Netherlands, and their manager Louis van Gaal, who's a legendary coach, they had great tactics coming into this game, and I think we've had good tactics throughout most of the group stage, and we've commented on that. I think Greg's had a great approach to a lot of our games from a tactical and roster approach perspective, like starting 11. And I think Netherlands just kind of outdid us in this one. I think they forced us to take the ball and to try to break them down. They kind of dictated where the ball had to go. They basically totally closed up shop in the middle of the field, virtually eliminated our midfield from the offensive side of the play and put all the pressure on our wingbacks. And then their forwards spread out to press our wingbacks, and when we lost the ball on offense, they were already wide in transition, and Cody Gakpo and Memphis Depay are going to make you pay. And neither of those two, Memphis did score the first goal, but those two were effective today. The Netherlands as a team, a hell of a lot more effective than we were as a team when it came to their results. So very disappointing. This is the first game that I do think that we deserve to lose. We were not the better team, but I also think we were in it. We could have been in it for a lot longer, even given a couple defensive lapses. So to me, our worst game of the tournament, unfortunately. We also just looked really tired. I don't know what you think about that, Justin, but the guys just looked a little bit leggy out there. And I think it's because we were having the same guys start day in, day out in these games. And it's also hard. I mean, what is there? 3 or 4 games in between matches? People don't really understand soccer fitness, but that's a lot to play consistently. To play at that high level too, and not the weather I don't think really was a part of it, but it's difficult to maintain your intensity for 90, closer to 100 plus minutes with stoppage time at that level. So I think that kind of caught up to us a little bit today.
Some of those guys shouldn't be tired because Greg barely played them in the previous games. But I will say I disagree with you on we should have lost that game. Our expected goals was 1.89 and they were 1.85. We'll get into some chances and why that is, but I thought the boys held their own. We had 58% possession, 17 shots with 6 of them on goal. Netherlands had 15 shots with 7 of them on goal. Matt Turner stood on his head for a couple of those. Couldn't do anything about the goals. But I don't know. I thought they put their chances away when they had them, and they were few and far between, but they capitalized, and that's just something we didn't do. But I thought we had the better of the chances.
Yeah, when I say we deserve to lose, I think they had a plan and we had a plan. They executed their plan to perfection, and we really didn't. I think we knew about what their plan would be to address us because we know our own weaknesses. And I just feel like we didn't have either the right players or the right adjustments in game, or just a couple of lapses, just like mental moments that just got away from us. So to me, against a big team, you're going to get punished. And Netherlands punished us 3 times.
Let's get into some highlights, though. Let's get into the highlights.
Let's be positive.
Before we be negative.
We will. Well, and we'll be very positive too, I think, especially in some of the looking ahead, because I think generally there should be a very positive vibe around our result in this World Cup. I was pretty shocked. This is a highlight for me because Greg is, I feel like, a man that's pretty set in his way. He's a tactician. He does spend a lot of time noodling on the tactics and understanding formations. But all of a sudden, when we needed a goal, which we've kind of needed goals throughout this entire tournament, Greg was willing to go away from just playing a striker for playing a striker's sake. And to me, we'll talk about a little of the negative, but I'm going to talk about the positive for now. That was great because I think we looked a lot better without Ferreira on the field. I think he came into a tough situation having to come in as a striker against Netherlands, and he's a very much of a drop deep and connect play type guy, which isn't what we really needed. But finally, Greg just realizes that we just need to put our best players out there and make it happen. And I was just happy to see him come to that realization, and, albeit too late, but doing that made us look a hell of a lot more dynamic than we had been in the first half.
Gio looked great for only playing 9 minutes ahead of that. And yeah, it was tough. It was a tough spot for Jesus Ferreira. I don't drop him at all. I think he did fine, and it was nothing. He didn't do great, but extremely tough to just come on and start a World Cup knockout round game without playing a single minute. So I think he did fine, but Gio looked awesome. So I completely agree with you there. I'm glad that Greg did that at halftime too and didn't wait until like the 80th.
Yeah, no, I am too. Just a couple of highlights. You know what? I did have to look a little bit harder for this one because I do think this wasn't this, like I did say, to me it was our worst game we've played so far. I look at a couple guys though, especially in the first half. I thought Anthony Robinson played incredible. I think his work rate off the ball, on the ball, he's always sprinting. You showed me some stats, Justin. Like he had some of the highest sprinting totals, like time spent sprinting in the World Cup thus far. I think it was maybe second. So in the World Cup throughout the group stage. So impressive for him. I love just how hard he works on both sides of the ball. You can tell he cares. You saw some videos on Twitter about him being emotional after the Iran victory and just how much that meant to him. Like, I just love how invested he's in. And he's been a guy that, like, we weren't always counting on. He was kind of out of the picture for a while, and then he gained his spot back in the World Cup qualifying. And I think he was one of our most consistent performers of the World Cup and of World Cup qualifying outside of the laps that he had on one of the goals.
Completely agree. And he's one of the guys, we'll get into superlatives later, but he was one of the stars for me of this tournament.
Dest also had a great first half. I think because he was playing so hard, and he had so much to play for. This is his home country, Netherlands. He was raised there. He probably knows a lot of these folks on the Netherlands roster. And for him, you could tell he really cared about it and he wanted to just sink his all into it. And I think unknowingly, he kind of just gassed himself through the first half because he was looking like he was our biggest threat on the ball throughout most of the first half. And he was just going. It's like, just get him the ball. Just get him the ball. Things are happening. And I think he just tired himself out after a while. But I think he was another guy. People had worries coming to the World Cup. And Dest, he's an offensive threat. He's a great dribbler, great technical ability. But people are like, but his defense, don't know about that. I think he had a pretty good defensive World Cup. I think he kind of proved the doubters wrong on that. And I think he had another great first half, though he did have to be subbed in the second.
I thought he did great, and you're right. He worked his butt off, and I loved seeing him get up and down the wing with Weah. I think that was one of the more exciting parts, especially when Gio was on as well. Looking at those three connect and how tactically sound they are and creative, I'm excited for what's to come, but I wish we would have had more time with them.
Yeah. And finally, Reem was my man of the match for us. I know it wasn't a pretty game in terms of the scoreboard. I don't think any of those three goals were his fault. I think for us, I mean, he was a guy that wasn't even in the fringe looking into the World Cup, and then some injuries happen. He's a proven vet, and he gets thrown in. And I think he has done nothing but raise his stock and raise the respect the program should have for him and being our center back. I mean, if we had to go play a World Cup in a year or two, I still think he might be in the picture. But given that it's 4 years away, I think his age might catch up to him in that case. So I don't think he'll be around anymore. But what a tournament from Tim Ream. I thought he was incredible today still, and he just looked like our best defender throughout the entirety of the tournament.
I mean, he for sure was in this game specifically. I know all three of the goals, Adam should have tracked back on Depay, but then, so Adam's in the midfield, obviously, but Dest should have marked blind, Tider, and Robinson didn't even see Dumfries behind him. So those two, and then Walker Zimmerman almost put in an own goal. So the only one that didn't have an absolute blunder was Tim. I thought he played great.
Yeah. Which is a great transition into some of our lowlights. I will one more mention on the highlights. I think Greg finally did show that he had some subs that could make an impact off the bench. Yedlin was a good sub today, I think. Reyna, obviously, and Aronson as well came on and made an impact, a tangible impact. So a little bit too late, but happy for them.
Last highlight, the goal. We got a goal. It was awesome.
They get a goal.
It looked awesome. Haji Wright, great job. Kidding. You have bricks for feet. You couldn't even get your foot around the ball, and I don't know the physics of how that ball went in.
Couldn't score that goal again. Couldn't score it again if he tried.
No, and we'll get into lowlights. He's full of them.
It had Julian Green 2014 vibes. You remember that game against Belgium when he somehow scored that goal? It had, but almost like even luckier. I couldn't believe that.
Completely agree.
Lowlights. So I go back to Greg on the willingness to depart from the traditional strikers. He talked before the game about what Ferrer was going to do in this game, dropping back into the midfield, receiving the ball, connecting. If that's what Ferrer is going to do, why don't we put someone that's better at doing that job in the game, like Giovanni Reyna, like to start? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, if you know that's his role, That's not a forward's role traditionally. They can do some of that. We need a striker. And if we're not going to play with our striker having that expectation to go out, score goals, run, make good runs, and then why play him in the first place? He's not the best player at doing that job.
I didn't realize that that's what Greg said ahead of time. I thought he was putting him in as a guy to finish in front of net, which we've had trouble on. And so that was my take. I was okay with him starting it, but I didn't realize that was actually the plan. Otherwise,
he made comments.
Gio's the guy that when the ball's on his feet, he looks filthy. Jesus Ferreira, no one on the Netherlands is scared when the ball's at his feet. I can promise you that.
Yep. And goes back to this. Even if Ferreira was brought on to be that finisher, he hasn't been doing that recently. And we haven't been doing that recently. Today, what bites us time and time again is that we just can't be lethal. Like when these like that chance to Pulisic right in the beginning of the game, it was really close offsides. Maybe he's thinking he's offsides, so that kind of gets into his mind. We have to put that in the back of the net. There is no excuse. This is the World Cup. You have to take your chances. And if you don't, which we didn't, they scored minutes later. You have to score.
I have a little section here for chances. Pulisic, that was in the 3rd minute. And yes, he should have put that away. I think he was surprised, so I'll give him that. He did fine. The next chance, Tim Ream in the 49th. He was fighting through. I know it's tough. He was falling over when he hit it. He just didn't get a hold of the ball, but that was a clearance off the line. That was tough for us. Turner in the 71st kept us alive, already down 2-0, making that first save. And then that Memphis diving header right after is a second save. Awesome. And then to follow that, Haji Wright bricks for feet, takes that massive 15-yard touch when it's just him and the goalie. Don't know what was going on there.
Yeah.
And then Walker Zimmerman in the 85th trying a bicycles kick. If you get on Twitter right now, he got absolutely roasted. It was just like, Zimmerman with the bike, and people are throwing up like videos of Swaggy P turn around going like this after thinking he hit the 3. Yes, got absolutely roasted. So yes, I couldn't agree more. We couldn't put our chances away, and that's why we didn't win.
And it's devastating, man. It's just devastating because I felt it, and even in those moments, it's just like, man, I don't want to have to feel this because I feel like if we put that away, maybe this game is different. But I feel like when we miss it, you give that team like that was close. Let's go get a little distance between us and them because they could do this to us. And we keep saying it, and no one's just going to flip a switch and say, I'm going to be clinical all of a sudden and score these goals. But we're like, that is the biggest hole for us right now is we don't have a proven goal scorer. It doesn't even have to be the striker position, but someone when the ball falls to them, it's going in the back of the net. They're just, I think Pulisic's the closest we have, but he's not that exactly. And it's just frustrating. Like that is the biggest hole for us. We don't need to win these games on XG. Like you saw the stats after the XG for both of us were like separated by 100ths of a decimal. We were both in the 1.8s. And so that tells you Netherlands didn't have these crazy good chances to get their 3 goals. They just finished them when they came. They were all basically the same.
We were caught sleeping. Those boys just did not pay attention. Adam should have tracked back. Des should have marked Blind closer. And Anthony Robinson didn't even see the guy behind him. And you can see it on Tim Ream's face. He's like, why were you marking the same guy I was? Yeah. That's tough. But they put him away. And like you said, that's just one thing we couldn't do. The only other thing I would also touch, kind of leading us into that, and I know we have some other points, but kind of related to that is our set pieces. We didn't even give ourselves a chance to be lethal. Our corner kicks were either way wide, way long, or right at the 6'8" goalie. I can't get over that.
It's bad. And that was another theme we kept hitting on too. It just felt today like it just maybe wasn't our day. Like even the passes we had, like things were behind people and it was disruptive to the flow. Like I just don't really ever think we kind of hit gear. We had some good sequences for sure, but like throughout a full half, like most of these first halves through the group stage, we were playing really well, like for most of the first half. And for this, it kind of just like they came and they went. Really, there wasn't really a general flow to our game, which was unfortunate, and that'll put you off. And I said in the beginning, a couple of guys to me kind of just look leggy, kind of off tempo, which I think kind of goes back to what I just said. And I think we also generally realized that we made some subs, but we're not a very deep team yet. And I think deep teams are what you need to win big games like that because they made 2 subs at half too. And both those guys were impactful. So it's about being able to not only know when to adjust, but have the players to go to in those situations. And that's not Greg's problem. But I think that's a problem that we are addressing, and it will not be the same come the next World Cup or next tournament.
But what is Greg's problem is his in-game management. We've talked about this all the time. And let's get into what those subs were. We already agreed Gio at half was great. I was so pumped when I saw him getting instructions on the iPad at halftime, knowing that he was coming straight in. Aronson came in the 67th. I would have brought him in a little bit earlier, but I think that's fine. I did not like that he came in for Weah. Personally, I think that should have been Musa. He had a great tournament, but he was just kind of out there running around. I can't recall anything fantastic by Musa, and I think Weah is dangerous. When we're down, you need to keep Weah on. So happy Aronson came on, but Weah should have stayed. Yedlin for Destin 76. Or sorry, I'm skipping over one. And the biggest one, Haji Wright for Weston McKinney. What the F was going on in Greg's mind where he thinks Haji Wright's going to bring us back to this game? No clue. Yedlin for Des. That's just because Des was tired and Yedlin can absolutely fly. So I was okay with that. And then I swear to God, Jordan Morris. I was hoping he was up there at like the 86. He didn't get on to the 90th plus 2 because there was no stoppage. I was hoping there wasn't going to be a stoppage. Jordan Morris's cleats should never touch grass for the U.S. men's national team again. I hope he liked it because he's done.
Yeah, that's just – and I like Jordan's story, but it just – in the World Cup, he's just not a World Cup player. And to me, he was just an inclusion because we had some extra spots. And yeah, I couldn't believe that we went to him either. And you mentioned in-game management. Yeah, the subs, some of them, the personnel was off, and taking off certain people wasn't the right move. It's also like, Greg, say something to these players that aren't tracking their defenders. Like, clearly it's not resonating today. This is not complex stuff. You learn this very early on. It's not like it's man-on-man defense in basketball, but kind of sometimes when you get into defense, you can defend zonally or you can defend more man-to-man. And either way, you got to pick someone up. And how we let 3 goals happen with the same exact situation where it's just blown coverage, it's ridiculous. It's like, what did you say at halftime? What did you say after the first goal? These guys have got to flip on and not let these things happen, because it's just daggers, man. Like, if we got beat because we got beat and they outplayed us and they had these beautiful moves and someone scored a 40-yard just banger of a goal, okay, I'll tip my hat to them. But we kind of a little bit undid ourselves, which is the most frustrating thing to me.
That was Blynn's 3rd goal in like 89 matches from now.
Yeah.
Just come on.
He's not a goal scorer?
No, absolutely not. All right. What about what else do you have on lowlights? We talked about subs,
I don't have
tactics.
much else. I think we talked about it.
Greg's bounce passes.
Oh, the bounce pass was off.
Chill out, dude. Just get the ball to our guys. You threw one. He even like missed one. And like so bad that it literally lost us time. Like just I love
the bounce passes. I think they're so hilarious. And he's talked about it before. I think he's talked about it in an interview. I forget. Look it up. Like, look up Greg Berhalter bounce passes on YouTube. He's definitely talked about like why he does it. There is a reason why he does it. I think it's for momentum in terms of throwing. Like, it's better to receive the ball instead of like up top from a throw, bouncing it to you and you being able to kind of flow into your form. It's a lot. I'm not saying it's proven, but he has a reason behind it.
Just get the ball to the dude. Just get the ball back.
I know. And he did cost us time at the end of the game, which was stupid. I just hate this game to think back on now, because I think a little bit of what if situation. Like, what if we wouldn't have been switched off on those 3 different goals? And what if we would have finished that Pulisic chance? And you never want to finish a game and just thinking about those hypotheticals. And I'm not going to think about that much more, but it does suck to kind of finish that game and have to think about that. Like, what if we would have taken our chances? And that's the last thing I'll say.
What if our coach wasn't blind? What if he could read? What if he could throw the ball to our guys and not waste time for us? It was just a lot of what ifs. Couldn't imagine.
Let's take a deep breath. Let's take our negative Nancy hat off and let's start to think about what's ahead, because I think we all want to find a place to rest our hat and think about what's in it for the future. So think about the World Cup now. So it's the round of 16, every single CONCACAF team gone. So North America as a continent has been eliminated. And we were the best, though, of them in the World Cup. And you look at teams like Mexico and Canada. So those are probably our biggest rivals, both historically and of the future. And I think they're both trending opposite directions. So Mexico, let's go ahead and recap what Mexico's been through recently here. They lost the Gold Cup. They lost the Nations League to us. They failed to qualify for the U20 World Cup. They failed to qualify for the 24 Olympics, which is a U23 mostly tournament. And their run of qualifying for 6 straight World Cup round of 16s has been snapped. So Mexico is reeling at this point. I don't know much about their pipeline or what they have coming up. It hasn't been impressive, and you think they would have blooded some of those players maybe along the way here. So Mexico, they could be fading a little bit here. And I think Canada's slowly starting to ramp up.
Mexico is tanking, and I don't know what they're tanking for. You don't get like a first overall pick for sucking. And like they literally their main team just didn't get out of the group. And like you just said, they didn't qualify for the U20 World Cup or the Olympics, which is a bunch of young guys. So their pipeline is empty. These guys should be a little concerned.
I'd be very concerned. And they fired their coach right after they lost Tata Martino, their coach, now gone. So I think they're entering a rebuild phase, which is only great for us. I think we're entering like this just kind of almost like accelerator phase. We're just getting better and better and building and building. Canada is a little bit similar. They don't have as deep a pipeline as I think we do, but they showed not as good as Mexico in the tournament, but for different reasons. Like I think Canada just exerted everything they had in that first Belgium game, and it just wasn't enough. And I think it could have been because Belgium was shaky. Obviously, they got eliminated. And then the next two games, they just didn't really have it. But they do have some good players. They do have some young talents that are coming up. I fully expect them to kind of draw a comparison. Think about the St. Louis Blues. The Blues Blackhawks has always been a rivalry. It always will be. And I think about that as like US-Mexico. I'm kind of thinking now Canada's becoming our next big adversary. They are going to be challenging for years to come, especially the 2026 World Cup. I think they will be a much better contender, and I think they have a lot to hang their hat on. Even though they lost all three games, they played really well against a very, very good team, and they returned to the World Cup after decades of not being there. So general optimism as well, I think, coming from their contingent. So I think they're the one that I'm not worried about, but I'll have my eye on for the next couple of years here.
I'm excited. I'm excited to get off the Mexico train and move on. In Canada, like you said, they're trending up, and they're going to be our new rival. So let's move.
Yep. The last thing I'll say is there's other teams in CONCACAF: Panama, Costa Rica, Trinidad and Tobago.
The fact that we can't even name them, we shouldn't.
Yeah,
I don't care.
And that kind of gets to what I'm saying is that, like, not that I overlook them, but we should beat those teams regardless of what's going on because of the depth of our talent pool. So we'll see those teams still. But those Canada and Mexico are the ones that you probably need to worry about the most. Let's get into some fun stuff. Let's talk about superlatives. And this is really, I think, focused on the World Cup. So World Cup, U.S. men's national team superlatives.
I'm going to let you run through these. You have some pretty funny ones, so I'll let you fly through.
So everyone loves Captain America. They love Christian Pulisic. But for me, the most likely to find legitimate ice in his veins would be on Christian Pulisic's next primary care checkup. That guy is, and I didn't realize it until kind of this tournament, and not that I didn't respect him at all, but like, I had to take a look back at sort of his history, because I mean, obviously he was very clutch for us. Had the assist in the Wales game, beautiful to Weah. He had the goal in the Iran game, and he continually looked to be pretty much our most consistent threat going forward, either because he was the finisher or because he was the creator. He always was dangerous on most of our set. They always kind of tag back to Christian. Christian Pulisic obviously sacrificed his body on put it on the line for the Iran game winner. Huge respect there. Let's go back to some of his history. He lit up when he was 16, 17 years old, the U17 Nike friendlies. The U.S. beat Brazil. Brazil has pipeline for days. That was insane. Then he put the 2017 version of this team, the U.S. men's national team, on his back through most of qualifying, tried to get us back into the game even against Trinidad and Tobago when we got eliminated from the World Cup, or eliminated from World Cup qualifying. It didn't make it in 2018. He had the game-winning goal in the Nations League against Mexico. He had the game-winning goal versus Mexico in a World Cup qualifier here at home. He had a hat trick in the penultimate World Cup qualifier against Panama, which all but solidified our spot in this year's World Cup. And at the club level, he's no sham either. He drew a PK in the DFB Pokal final that's like Germany's FA Cup, like England, or our MLS Open Cup here. And that was when he was young, back in 2017. He scored a goal in the final of the FA Cup for Chelsea against Arsenal, and they still lost there, unfortunately. But he scored a goal in the semifinal of the Champions League, and they got an assist on the home leg against Real Madrid. So this guy he's a big moment player, and I respect the hell out of him for it because he shows up when it matters most.
And he increased his stock. If you've seen articles recently, Man U, Arsenal, and Newcastle are all looking at him right now, because right now he's not playing for Chelsea, and everybody's like, what is going on over there? They don't get it. So he's going to make a move and play more, so I'm excited for him.
I'm excited for him to get out of Chelsea. Just please let him go, and for him to find his new home, because I think he's kind of stalled there. Most likely to win the lottery, Haji Wright. That guy could not score that goal any other time. Any other time, you could give him a million chances, and I do not think he scores that goal again. And not to say that was easy, and he should have scored it, but the way that all happened, for him to like just kind of flick it off his dragging foot, he wasn't looking for goal there. It just goes perfectly nestled into the top corner where no one can get it. That guy needs to buy a lottery ticket yesterday.
Or something, because I would leave him in Qatar. But
oh my God. The most likely to be running to the plane just because he wants to and he doesn't really like to walk, Tyler Adams. That guy just pops up everywhere. I cannot believe how, like, his lungs just must be built for this. I mean, he is so fit. I cannot believe the amount of running he does. We also saw stats that he is top 5, I believe, in amount of kilometers run during the group stage. The man just works his tail off. So kudos to him for that. I talked about Anthony Robinson kind of being a little bit of an enigma prior to really solidifying his spot in the World Cup qualifying roster and then coming to the World Cup and having a great performance here. To me, he was the most improved player. He's a day in, day out starter for us now. He's a day in, day out starter for Fulham. He has some competition in the left back spot. I think Kurzawa plays for Fulham, and they signed him to probably replace Robinson. Robinson said, nah, I'm going to keep starting here. So kudos to him. I think he's definitely the most improved player, where he's almost one of the most critical parts of our team because we don't have depth there at the left back position. How about you take us for a ride down STL lane here, Justin?
Most memorable guy from the tournament, in my opinion, Tim Ream. There was no blunders by this man. He was the grandpa of the team. He brought all of his knowledge to these guys, and he also showed it on the field. And I thought he had an incredible tournament. So I would put him as the most memorable guy from this team.
Yeah. When you think back to it, I think you will think about Tim Ream for this 2022 World Cup. Was just a stud. Very, very rock solid. Most likely to be forgotten. People forget we have Luca De La Torre that was on this roster, and he was kind of a in and out of the starting 11 towards the end of World Cup qualifying, playing in the midfield when we had injuries to MMA or anyone in that group. He was on the roster. I think he was recovering from injury, and there was concerns going into the World Cup. Didn't see a minute. There was only a couple guys that didn't see a minute in the World Cup, and he was one of them. So people kind of forgot about him being on the team. Not that I think he's going to be around for the next cycle, but I thought that was interesting. Most likely to never see this player again, Shaq Moore. I don't think we'll ever see Shaq Moore suit up for the U.S. men's national team again, barring just MLS-based friendlies, because now he is in the MLS. That for me, he'll never play competitively again for us.
He should also be left in Qatar and help take down one of those stadiums. So
help take him down. Most likely to be one of our, if not our superstar heading into the World Cup, not Pulisic. I think Gio Reyna, if he can find a place and find time to develop these next 4 years. Remember, he is just what is he? 18 now?
No,
we got to get his right age.
You keep going.
I think he might be 20. Gio is 20 years old. Sorry, he's 20. He was 17 when he made his breakthrough.
He just turned 20,
20 years old.
In November.
Just turned freshly 20, same as Musa. Gio has a high ceiling, and that's well known throughout Europe. I think alarm bells are ringing for this guy, and I think if you give him a good go in a team, he can be a superstar. So my eyes shift to him being like our current Pulisic in 2026, unless that person's not known yet, which is very feasible. Think about most of our team today. These guys were high teens.
Gio's 20 right now, and Musa was 19 when this tournament started. That means that those boys, we're looking at 15, 16-year-olds right now. We have plenty of time, and not that we need it. A lot of these guys, they'll be 24. They'll be in their prime when the next World Cup rolls around. But we can still fill the pipeline. Hopefully, we'll be a lot deeper.
My favorite story of the tournament was Matt Turner. I think Matt Turner wasn't called on an insane amount, which I kind of expected. Not insane, but he wasn't called on a ton. But when he was up for the task. There were a few jarring moments for sure, especially with the feet. But he always made the right decision. It didn't look easy.
He made the stops he needed to make. He couldn't do anything on the majority of the goals. The only one going way back to Wales that Gareth Bale would have definitely put away was when Matt Turner came out like 50 yards from the goal. Right. But that was the only kind of shocking one. He had some stuff with his feet, but overall, incredible, especially coming back from his story of what he started playing soccer at 16.
Oh my God,
D3. He was on the Sports Center not top 10, number 1 for the shot that went off the crossbar in college. And he was looking up at it, and then he hit it into his own net.
Yep.
So Hell of a
Yeah,
turnaround.
look that up too. Look that up too. Now that the tournament's over, no bad juju for Matt Turner, but he was one of the best stories for sure. Most likely to be smiling, Yunus Musa. That guy never stops smiling. He has zoom in on like team pictures. He's always just like the biggest grin on his face, and it's so nice. I also think he's one of the guys that'll be. He's playing day in day out right now in La Liga in Spain. I think he could also be one that'll be cementing his spot and looking really really good come 2026 with more years under his belt. I think most swag on the team, Timmy Weah. That dude just dripped. Like every single time he was on the ball, he was dangerous. He kind of just carries himself with that bit of swag. Like you can tell this guy just kind of has it going for him. So I love Timmy. I know you love Timmy too.
Tim's awesome. He would also never be caught dead wearing that shirt that Greg wore in the England game. States United. Yeah, he would burn that before he wore
it. Most likely to be our starting striker in any next competitive game. And I say competitive game like a big tournament game or something like that. I think it'd be Sargent for me. / potentially play for City at some point. I think if any of these guys that we just saw play and take the field, I think he is the most likely to potentially play here in his hometown for our club. So excited for him. I think he had a good stock in at the World Cup, and maybe he'll come here eventually. And we'll get these last ones, and I'll get to you, Ja, here for your final thoughts. But most likely to be immediately fired, set piece coach. Also should help dismantle the stadiums in Qatar. Just provide a helping hand there because you did not help us at all. Like in fact, it was negative. I think I could have served in some better crosses and drawn up some better plays than what this guy did. He should go. Gone. Set piece coach gone. And the most likely to benefit now from the new set piece coach, which who knows who this will be, got to be Weston McKennie. Weston McKennie is our set piece guy. He's such an aerial threat. I really hope he will appear more on the end of some of these set pieces and these services coming in when we do find a new guy that can actually do his job. So, Justin, stars. Final thoughts here, superlatives.
I've got quick superlatives. Stars, Pulisic, Adams, Robinson, Turner. Nothing else to say there. Those guys were great. Had potential, and I didn't think lived up to it. Still played fine, but not as good as I was hoping. Zimmerman, Musa, and Dest. I just feel like they all three could have done a little more. I'm excited for going forward. Josh Sargent, Tim Weah, and Gio Reyna. I thought all three of those looked creative, and especially when Gio had time on the field, and I love Tim Weah. Guys, that should help take down the stadiums. Shaq Moore, Jordan Morris, and Haji Wright. I hope I never see you again.
Stick around.
See ya.
Yep. Only one I disagree potentially there is Dest. And I think Dest had his worst game today, but I think he had a good, strong tournament. Like he was growing into it the whole time. But otherwise, I think I'm with you.
I just wanted a little bit more attack out of him. I think otherwise he'd be fine. And maybe, I don't know. Also, one thing we didn't really talk about, I was so worried after the first game with 4 yellows. We didn't get another yellow card.
No. We were actually very, very, we didn't get another yellow card. We were very, very resilient and somehow did not get those.
Weird.
We were really smart.
Very surprised by that. But what's ahead for the team? I think let's first get into the elephant in the room. Mr. Greg Berhalter. What is this?
What's ahead for us? Yeah. What's ahead for us? So obviously we have a ton of fans here that are big soccer fans and a ton of fans that are just fans of the World Cup, which is totally fine. Not judging at all. You probably the head coach job is a big deal, obviously. And right now Berhalter's contract expires either at the end of the World Cup in a couple weeks after the World Cup. Either way, it expires very, very soon. So the national team, Ernie Stewart, friend of the pod, has a big conversation and decision to make here. Do we go back to Berhalter? If so, is it for the entire 2026 World Cup cycle? Is it for a smaller cycle as more of an interim person to wait for the new manager? Do we just let him go? And when I say let him go, like just let his contract expire, look for a new person. Personally, I think with the tournaments coming up, and just to give you some context, the Gold Cup is the CONCACAF version of the World Cup, but it's just North American teams. It happens next summer. The Youth World Cup for the U20 folks is happening basically next summer as well. And then the following summer, the Copa America and Olympics are happening. We're not invited to Copa America yet, but I think I've heard murmurings we actually might be, which would be awesome. Copa America is the South America World Cup. So obviously Brazil's, really, really good teams in this tournament. Colombia, Peru, like very, very solid teams. So that is happening. We might get into that. It sounds like we might be. Olympics, we already qualified for. That's a U23 team, mostly with a couple of guys that are exceptions that could be above 23 years old. So that's what's ahead for us. Me personally, Greg is not the guy for 2026, nor do I think anyone should have more than one World Cup cycle to go. I think your vision, your message starts to get a little bit stale after those 4 years. 8 years is a long time to be in one job for anyone. So, and especially in sports, any coach, like who is coaching for 8 years, like Bill Belichick, and some crazy examples. But for me, he's not the guy to take us forward. I could see them extending him for 2023 just to see this like kind of intermediate period. There's not very many meaningful things coming up for us, but I do think we'll be having a new coach on the sidelines to take us from 2024 to 2026.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Ernie, if you can't make the call, call me. I'll make the call. Get him out.
Yeah, we're happy to consult.
He did fine. We talked about he had a lot of pregame great stuff, but anybody can have great pregame. It's what's about what's in the moment, and there is not a single person in America is like, wow, Greg killed it. Get him out.
Yeah, I would say here, like if we would have gone on, there's definitely like gone to the quarterfinals. There's definitely a case to be made that like Greg might be the guy. He just took you to a quarterfinal after not qualifying, but there also is a case to make if he doesn't get out of group, he's not the guy 100%. So he's kind of in this middle ground where it's like it wasn't unsuccessful, but it wasn't as great as we would like to have it. So you're kind of caught between two here, and you have 4 years now to prep. So in 2023 is kind of a lost year. There aren't very many meaningful things going on in 2023 for us. I think 2024 is what you're really looking at. So is it immediate? No. But do I think he's the guy for 2026? No.
No, we have friendlies coming up against Serbia and Colombia in January, and then we have Nations League in March. So maybe he gets through that just to get us over the hump. We don't need to rush into this, but he should not be doing any meaningful tournaments coming up, in my opinion. Get him out.
Yeah, and I think he should give the guys that played this World Cup, like I don't want him to call any of these guys in for these World Cups, for these national cycles. Like let them have a break. Like this club season with the World Cup in the middle of it is going to be a long season for these guys. So. And mentally just draining as well. So I would really hope that he gives them some time off from the national team and bloods some new guys and bloods some even domestic guys. I'm fine with doing MLS stuff. Like that's fine. So I really hope he gives those guys time, whoever the coach is, for especially this year in 2023. So this on the horizon, some cool opportunities with the Olympics, the U20 World Cup, and potentially Copa America coming up. Gold Cup's always fine. Not the highest level of play, obviously, but it's against Mexico and Canada, so there's something there. But I really do hope we get into 2024 and probably have a new coach at the time taking us to the domestic World Cup here.
Let's talk about what's ahead for us next on Ball Watching.
Yeah, what's ahead for your hosts?
We're not exactly slowing down, but obviously with the U.S., we don't have to do as many recaps and primers and stuff like that. But our kind of plan for you guys is the quarters start on Friday, this coming Friday, December 9th. So we're going to do a recap of the round of 16 high level, talk about our thoughts on that. And we're just going to kind of continue that theme. And then we'll do a recap of the quarters when the semis start on December 13th. And then we'll do a recap of the semis before the final on December 17th. And then we'll do a recap of the final. So just some smaller things coming up. We'll make those quick. The U.S. is out just to keep you guys, anybody else that's still somewhat engaged into the World Cup.
Yeah.
Anything you want to hear. So reach out if you have specifics on any of those. But kind of looking ahead to that, now that the U.S. is out, we kind of have to pick a team. And I think you already did this before the World Cup. I'm going to Brazil for two reasons. One, they look great. I also think they have a pretty easy route. They have Korea tomorrow, and then they play the winner of Japan and Croatia. And then they'll have to face like Argentina or whatever, but I think they blow through those two games. They're plus 250 to win the World Cup. And my second reason, unfortunately, probably the greatest player of all time, Pele, is dying. And he is on his deathbed. They just moved him pretty much to hospice. So extremely sad. I think that gives those guys even something more to play for, and they don't want to let him down. And I think this team's going to be fighting like no other, and they're already incredible. So hammering Brazil plus 250 literally after this podcast.
Love it. No, I think Brazil's definitely going to be in the final. I also have some money on Spain as well. That's the country that I'm kind of tracking. They had a pretty crappy last game, obviously, but otherwise I think they looked pretty good. They take on Morocco, and Morocco was the shock winner of their group in the round of 16 on Tuesday. So I'll be really anxiously watching that game. Other games that we have coming up, Japan, Croatia, you already mentioned, is tomorrow. When I say tomorrow, is in Monday. That's the same day as Brazil, South Korea. Tuesday has Morocco, Spain, and Portugal, Switzerland. And I know we talked about this before. I have a feeling that there could be upset alert. Alarm bells ringing for Portugal. I don't think they've looked the final product so far this tournament. And the Swiss are a very, very dedicated, balanced team. and I think they could be the ones to bring an end to Portugal. So,
Jake,
if you're feeling risky, maybe.
I'll be your bookie for that one. Send me a text. I'll take the Portugal side -110, Switzerland +330. Hit me up.
Okay.
Even if you want to take them to advance, they're +175. I'll be your bookie.
All good. That's what we got. So yeah, we'll be here probably on Wednesday or Thursday, bringing a round of 16 recap to you all. After that is officially closed out, and looking forward to the quarterfinals. But we're not going anywhere. The World Cup is still one of the coolest events. I think to me, it's the coolest event in sports in the world. We're a little bit biased here, obviously, but we're not going anywhere. Maybe a little bit less tracking just one team, but we'll be bringing the coverage to you all in terms of the primers and recaps, what to look for. But the World Cup's still very much going. Just the U.S. are not in it. But generally, I think we had a good tournament. We can definitely be happy in our performance and look forward to what's to come for this team.
Agreed. So keep following us. Keep sending us suggestions, questions, anything you want to hear for the rest of the World Cup at Ball Watching STL. DM us. Use our code for Series 6. Buy your Christmas stuff. It'll be here before you know it. It's insane that it's pretty much 3 weeks away. 3 weeks away from today. That's insane.
Yeah,
Jesus.
It's insane.
Get on there. Use the code Ball Watching for Series 6 for 15% off. And I would say let's go USA. That's what we've been saying, but that sucks. So let's go.
How about
Brazil?
Let's just go soccer for all the fans out there.
Oh, Jesus.
Let's just enjoy the time where soccer is. No, hold on. Let's enjoy this time where soccer gets a good amount of coverage and people actually care a little bit more about it than they do in regular life. So I can celebrate that and I can be fine with that. Okay. And hope you all are too. But happy Monday to you all listening to this on the pod. And we will chat with you again, like I said, probably middle to end of this week and talk more World Cup round of 16 and quarterfinal previews. Appreciate you all. Been loving the World Cup stuff. We love bringing this content to you all, and we'll chat with you all soon. Take care.
See you next time. See ya.